January 1st, 2007, Bulgaria and Romania joined the European Union. January 1st, if I remember correctly, Slovenia became member of the Eurozone. That was different kind of Europe, different kind of challenges and different kind of opportunities. I don't know whether it's fair to say that it was more optimistic Europe, which was opening and enlarging. And may I use the opportunity to give my colleagues the time to think about and asking Mr. Commissioner and Madam Deputy Secretary General, if you look in your crystal ball that you have now with you in front of you here, what would you see the new challenges that we are facing in the coming second decade that looking for our common tasks? I think you mentioned already the migration, and one of those issues probably will remain as our common challenge, but would you be able to give us a bit of a insight of your vision?
2007 was a year of a booming economy, and everybody was believing things continue as they were, and only a year later we were facing probably the hugest economic and financial crisis since the end of World War II, and we are just starting to recover from it. So it was a very difficult moment, and this has definitely also affected the situation in our neighborhood and in the enlargement region. So today I would say our main goal related to our policy is trying to stabilize the situation and to help our neighboring countries to further develop, and also in our own interest. I mean, having in mind that around Europe there are roughly 22 to 25 million refugees or internal displaced people, with all the possible risks to move towards Europe and all the consequences. But indeed, I believe that the real challenge for the 21st century is migration. And it also is also the fact that we are, so to say, neighbors to Africa. And if I look into the growth rate of Africa, I think 19 of the 20 fastest growing countries in the world are from Africa. And these 20 countries not even includes, for instance, Egypt, where you have every day 7,000 new little Egyptians, and every year there are 2.2 to 2.5 million more Egyptians, and the number of inhabitants in Egypt has quadrupled in the past 60 years. So these are real challenges, and finally I think these countries, these societies can only cope with all these challenges if there's also at least a gradual improvement of the society towards a society which gives more space to individuals, to freedom of expression, to follow your own interests. And because I think the huge achievement of Europe is its, so to say, all the positive consequences of the Enlightenment 200 years ago. And because today we're all together around 6–7% of global population, and if I take the members of the European Union, and these 6–7% still produce around 25% of the global economic output, and are able to finance more than 40% of the global social expenditures. And this is something we could only achieve by giving each individual the opportunity to pursue, so to say, their own interests, to follow their ideas and so on. And therefore we should have, and to respect, finally, human rights. And therefore I strongly believe, I know it's not easy to easily export all this, at least quickly, but it should be our, so to say, vision that a real healthy, prosperous, future-oriented, happy society can only be achieved if you give each individual freedom of space and everything which is related to, so to say, the personal opportunities and the opportunity to raise your voice and to participate in elections, etc., etc. And therefore, we have to follow this vision, and this can only be achieved if we really join all our forces and work closely together, and in a complementary way. And this is where I see, so to say, our task in the next couple of years, 10 years, even more, really to keep this vision alive. May I say, to strengthen it within some of your member states, and may I say also within some of our European Union member states. Even there, we are not yet where we would like to be. So a lot has to be done, but if we stay committed to it, if we have this vision every day alive, I think we all together are able to achieve our goals. But it's important to communicate to our citizens about the relationship between respecting rule of law, freedom of expression, and the positive consequences for the development of a society. A prosperous society can only be achieved if rule of law is respected, is sustainable, implemented. And I think this is so important to make this alignment between the two. Both have to be in place, in force, otherwise we would fail. And I think this should be our vision.
Well, trying to complement what I heard, which obviously I absolutely share, I would like maybe with this telegraphic style say the following. Personally, I see a major threat around democracy per se. And I think that what is at stake nowadays is the kind of societies in which we are living and how they are changing. And whether by the end of these processes of evolution or involution, whatever, whether we will still be able to say, I live in a democratic country where my rights are respected and where rule of law is really implemented. So this is something that really worries me when I see the phenomena of populism, the coming up again of strong phenomena of refusal of other citizens in society. We know what we talk about, racism, xenophobia, anti-Gypsyism, anti-Semitism, etc. So I see that societies are really now going through difficult tests. Having said so, I do believe that there is one element that has brought us there, to this situation, namely the socioeconomic crisis that we have gone through for so many years. Some countries are not yet out of that crisis. They are still trying to get out. And this obviously has an impact, because what has happened during these last 8 years is that poverty has increased, has not diminished, and that phenomena of inequalities have increased. Now we see some indication that growth might be coming back. Some decisions are taken in order to reinvest into our future from an economic point of view. Maybe in some countries unemployment is decreasing. These are good indicators, but unfortunately they are not yet spread to the whole of Europe, I would say. So this is one of the main handicaps we will have to face, how to re-establish more equitable societies where people feel really at ease, and where they can feel that they can trust the people that are responsible for the governance of their countries and of our joint undertakings, such an important undertaking as the European Union, which is a very important project in itself, and not to speak about the Council of Europe. So I see this as a real challenge, and the other challenge which I see is our inability, day after day, to manage problems of diversity. The migration issue epitomizes the situation where we are in at the moment. There is maybe a certain kind of fatigue in certain countries in relation to the capacity to absorb diversity, and yet we believe that it is a great opportunity, and that at the end of the day what counts is the way in which we, through our governing and rulers, are successful in managing this diversity in a positive manner. If we are not able, then obviously additional problems are going to appear. This is the reason why I believe that there are some programs of the Council of Europe dealing with, for instance, building inclusive societies, which are absolutely indispensable and essentials. I think we have thought a lot already and implemented already this program. We are going to continue in the next biennium. This is, from my point of view, important that we go along with this concept of building inclusive societies together. As to the socio-economic situation, we are very pleased now to see that there is this intention by the European Union to elaborate a European social pillar. We believe this is extremely important, and that's why I mentioned at the beginning of my speech the fact that it is so important that we succeed to get a reference, a clear reference to the European Social Charter as the benchmark in terms of social rights into the document which will be adopted in Gothenburg in September, in order to see in the declaration that the European Union will adopt what the European Union intends to do in terms of protecting and promoting social rights. This is, for me, really very important. Now, obviously, we can go on and speak about certain other phenomena linked to populism, or we can speak about corruption. At the end of the day is the word trust, the lack of trust by our citizens. And that's why I do believe that the third pillar of our cooperation through the joint agreement, the fact that we put emphasis on what we can do for our citizens there where they live, is so important. It is probably the most important thing that we are doing now in the present situation with the nationalist trends, with the populist trends in some of our member states. The more we are present, the more we really succeed, as you mentioned in your example, Mr. Commissioner, and I'm sure that we will hear other examples in the second part of this session. The more we are present to the real needs of the people on a daily basis, then we can, little by little, reconquer their trust. So these are some of the things which I see, not to speak about, because Council of Europe is bigger than the European Union, the conflicts that are still going on, the black holes where we do not have access, of territories that are, let's say, not accessible anymore. So there are other dimensions to the ones that we mentioned so far, but I wanted to complement at least to say that for me, at the end of the day, what we are talking about is really the kind of society in which we live, and in 5 years' time, we will be able to say, I live in a democracy, because what I see every day, it's really scaring. So thank you for this opportunity to complement your comments.